Welcome to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast. My name's Tyler Janin. I'm here with my co-host, Dallas LeDuc. We're having a ton of fun doing these, having an amazing guests come on. We have so many more guests lined up. We cannot wait to pump more episodes out to you guys. But Dallas, it's been a very busy week for me. You've been on the road. How was the crop production show? It's just a little bit too far away from home for me to go to. I normally catch Manitoba Egg Days just because it's a little closer to home for me. So they're much the same show. So if you're listening to this and you've seen Dallas, drop a comment. If you've listened to this and you're going to Manitoba Egg Days, keep an eye out. I might be there.
Well, actually, the crop production show was amazing. The go there and be part of the show like I was this time is just unreal, mind-blowing for just an old fat farm boy like myself to go there and have people that want to talk to me and have a conversation, talk about the crop, talk about the weather. So I have to say a couple of big thank yous and shameless plugs right off the bat. 100% Mandanko for inviting me up there, letting me hang around the booth with Quick Dick for a couple of days there. That was pretty awesome. And then I was really happy to be able to go over to Dutch Agriculture, spend an afternoon with those guys in the booth because Dutch Agriculture looks after our drill and the knives on it. So shameless plugs for those two businesses there. But man, it's nice to be treated like that. And the show was good. I think there was a heck of a good turnout. I think the booth stayed very busy when I was in there. I took on Thursday, I took in the mustard meeting there. So they had, your experts on mustard, on your growing, your genetics, your new varieties, your yield and pricing and the future outlook. So that was a good meeting to go to, but I almost wish it wasn't at the exact same time because that meeting basically burned up the entire last day for me. So I had a lot of filming I wanted to do that I didn't get a chance. Actually, our guest, went to his booth and he was already blazed out the door. I wanted to catch him and do a little clip and kind of promote his product, but I guess he left before I did. So actually, then and Tyler, we'll go back to you for a second here. But you've been calving away now. It's January. What are you doing calving?
Well, it's just that time of year for us. We started calving in the beginning of January. That way, we're through most of our herd by time it's ready for us to go seeding. Because when we're seeding, we don't have time to be chasing cows around and making sure calves are done. So by time it's time to go seeding, we're basically done calving. And there's the last few that they just go to pasture and they have pasture-born calves. It's what we've been doing for years. It seems to work for us. It makes for a busy winter with everything else we got going on around here, but that's farming.
And I've Google Earthed your yard a couple of times there. You guys got some pretty good barns and facilities. So if the weather does turn shitty for you, you can get quite a few inside there. But
it definitely does make a difference being able to get them into a barn. You don't get frozen ears or frozen tails, and the calves, they just seem to put on the pounds quicker when they have that first 24 hours of their life inside a barn where they're out of the wind, it's above freezing. They just seem to go harder is what I've seen. And I have tried that massaging that Lance told us about a few episodes ago.
Oh, I've been curious on that.
And those calves, they are close to a pet.
Really? When you're done?
When you're done.
Ear tagged them and needled them, you give them that 1 or 2 minute massage and they get up and they walk away. They just want to stay and get rubbed some more.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then the next time you walk through the pen, they're more prone to come up to you and give you a nudge and be like, hey, what you did last time, I want that again.
Well, that's great. That's and if you haven't heard that, we had Lance Nielsen Beef was on 3-4 podcasts ago. If you haven't listened to that one and you're in the cattle industry, you got to listen to that one. That is Lance's one smart cookie, and we were pretty lucky to have him. But speaking of lucky, and our next guest, I'm honored again to have this guy. I've known Russ for half a year or so now or more, and I've heard his advertisements, and I haven't got lucky enough to try out his product yet because he didn't release what I needed till after I bought the competitions. And Russ and I actually talked a little bit the show. Russ had a booth up there, and you'll probably recognize the name. It's Wildfong Enterprises or Wildfong. I don't know why the D's silent, but I guess Russ can explain that to us. So welcome to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast, Russ.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me.
The pleasure is ours. So how did the show go for you?
The show was, like you said, it was super busy, really good. We got to talk to a pile of people, and I love farm shows, man. Like getting out to them, you have customers stop in, you meet new people, but it's great. We got maybe 4 or 5 great customers that swing by and they'll hang out with you half the day and catch up with what you're up to, what you got going on. And the real funny part is when they go around and and you hear them or you overhear them at another booth or something. They're like, well, you should use Wildfong stuff and swing by there and see what Russ is up to. And it's great. They're loyal following is always welcome and appreciated.
Yeah, no, it was a good time at the show. I was lucky enough to be there with Quick Dick, so I got my share of laughs in. But unfortunately, Quick Dick went into that show sick, and he was so nice to pass on that cold to me while he was there. So
You weren't supposed to be kissing him, Dallas.
I tried to avoid him like the plague, but sometimes he's got to get a little bit too close to him. The scariest thing is people wanted pictures with both of us, which is just mind blowing. But okay,
yeah, that's a good place to be when your small town celebrity has reached a point where people want to come get your selfies. I'm not quite there yet, but I do get a lot of, hey, you're the guy from the radio ads, and yes, that's me. I hate rocks.
Yeah, me too.
And I gotta admit, I'm not witty enough to come up with that. So if we're throwing out some shout outs and thank yous to people, big shout out to Kevin at Rolco who helped me out with that one. So he helps me write a bunch of my stuff, and he's the inspiration for a few of the YouTube videos. And we did a cover song a few years ago, and we were randomly like tossing out some ideas and stuff. And he mentioned, well, on the weekends, my alter ego is I'm in an he's like metal hair band. And oh, you don't say, Kevin. You ever thought about doing the Wild Side by the Crew? And he's like, yeah, we're working on that right now. And I was like, I would love to change some lyrics around in that and just see how it turns out. And Kevin goes and he does this entire parody song all about rocks. And instead of the Wild Side, it's the Wildfong side. And it turned out pretty awesome. And we superimposed Kevin in there. And so we had a lot of fun that week making that video. And so shout out to Kevin. He's been a good friend and a big help.
And that's the big thing, is having somebody you can always trust on and count on for sometimes is pretty awesome. So obviously the D's not silent in the Wildfong side song.
Yeah, it comes and goes, right? So this silent D, I get questions about it, and we actually have some short-tailed relatives that they dropped the D. So we're thinking somewhere along the way, either our branch or theirs, there must have been a horse thief or something, and they didn't want to get associated with the other side. So half the family dropped the D, and which makes a lot more sense than our side. And so they just go by Wildfong. And for us, no, we're stubborn. We kept the D. You don't say the D, you don't pronounce the D, but it's there, damn it.
That's what the D stands for, is damn it.
Yes, that must be it.
So what is a little bit of the history of how your business and enterprise got to where you are?
So my great-grandfather is Arthur Wildfong, and they're from Ontario. And his half-brother Roy and him hopped on a train, I believe in 1918, to come work for, would have been a cousin or something like that, had a farm in Girvan. So they came out, got to Craig, worked for the cousin for a year, or in-law or whatever it was. I think that was enough. So for Art, he decided to go farming on his own. So he rented some land and farmed for, 4 or 5 years, and then met his future wife Ella, and it wasn't too long after that they got married and had their first kid. And the dates are a little short there, but we'll let people use their imagination with that one.
Oh, she was a very short pregnancy, you're saying? Yes, I've heard about
so.
those.
Yeah, it might have been a one of those shotgun deals, but yeah, it wasn't too long. My great uncle Vern came along, so he was the oldest, and then Gladys, my grandpa Bert, and it'd be uncles Jim and Ray, and yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Uncle Jim was the trucker of the family and loved being on the highway. I think it must be a family thing, because I think everybody kind of had that bug. Be on the highway, travel, do things. So Jim's little saying was, and I find myself, resorting to it lots of times, but he's like, if you don't have a headwind, you're probably going the wrong way. And, and it's just so true. I don't know how many times you're like, I got to go here, and you get on the road and immediately you have a headwind. And, deeper in life too. If there's not a little bit of adversity, yeah, you're probably going the wrong way. But so anyways, the boys are getting older, and 1947 comes along, and a few Canadians have been going down south custom combining. So my grandpa and his brother Vern decided to borrow the great grandpa's machinery, and they made it all the way to Kansas, and they started custom combining in 47. So if you imagine what equipment was like in 47, I can't remember the name of the combines, like a Super Massey, maybe something like that. We've got a couple of them out in one of our old farmyards, and it was on the back of I suppose it'd be a 3-ton maple leaf truck. And so they'd fold the box sides down. You drive the whole combine with the header on, maybe a 12, 14-foot header, something like that. You drive that on the back of the truck and you were gone. And that was it. That was everything. Yeah, no grain carts back then, and, no semis or anything like that. So they went all the way to Kansas, and it started a lifetime obsession for Uncle Vern. He did 52 consecutive harvest runs all the way till the day he died. Really, he died in November, and I don't know how old he would have been. I'm not that quick at math. So till the year he died, so 52 years. Grandpa Bert did it on and off over the years. My dad was a custom combiner too, so he fired up the harvest crew again when I was graduating high school, and I got to do it for a couple summers. There's something about hitting the highway with equipment and going down to US to make a buck. I don't know. It's quite an adventure, and not a lot of guys get the opportunity to experience that anymore. We hardly have any, Canadian cutters left. I was at the convention I guess it would have been last winter, and I think there's maybe only 7 or 8 active combiners that go south anymore, but they're a good group of people, and, shout out to the Canadian Association of Custom Combiners. I probably butchered that name, but look them up and yeah. Yeah, look him up, and if anybody listening to this has ever had the urge and is, especially young guys, and you're looking to find someone to go with, it's pretty easy to hook you up because everyone's looking for good help on the harvest run.
Yeah, I did a harvest run in the 90s. Ken did a couple of harvest runs. Ken Sars from Anaheim. He was also a guest here a couple episodes ago. He did a couple, and actually he went all the way over to Australia, and Ken always says if he goes missing, you're just going to find him in Australia. He loved that place, he said. So I also agree. If you're a young guy and you don't know what you want to do next summer, you don't want to be on dad's farm, maybe you want to still stay doing stuff like that, find a custom cutter, go down south. You'll never regret it, and you'll never forget the memories. I reference back to mine on a weekly basis. And some of the guys I went with are still buddies to this day.
Yeah. Where did you go?
We went all the way to Seymour, Texas, because I wanted to see more of Texas. That's why I remember that. And up to Oklahoma, El Reno, Oklahoma. And then we went to Colorado. That's where I got injured. And then, so I was out for pretty well 10 days, and I kind of ripped a finger off there in Colorado. So we finished there, and then rode the combines from Colorado to Selby, South Dakota. Stayed above the bar for, I think it was 3 weeks in South Dakota. We had a long run in South Dakota. And then some of the guys rode the combines all the way back into freaking Canada to Melville. We wore the tires right off of a few combines.
Yeah, sometimes it's, depending on logistics and, how things are going, roading them's not such a bad idea. We had a double combine trailer the last summer I was down there. So we had 2 combines on this, except I think they ran out of time that winter to work on it because they only had 2 axles under it. So South Dakota's notorious for being really harsh when it comes to, their highway patrolmen, their road laws. We just crossed the border from Valentine, Nebraska into South Dakota, and I'm driving this semi, right? Well, 18. Yeah, I was about 18 years old, and I get rolled by the DOT or whatever. I think it was a $4,500 fine. It was, in the year, 2004, 2005, something like that. It was... It was a lot of money, and then we had to unload them and haul them one at a time to the next job.
He didn't take time to notice that you weren't 21?
Yeah. But you can be legal down there. If you have your way up here and you're down on a harvest run, you don't have to be 21 to drive a semi in the States if you're permitted Canadian down there on that harvest run work visa.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, the summer before I was 17 and still doing the same thing, so I hope I'm not getting myself in hot water with...
I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has expired on that.
Nah, you never know. Them South Dakota DOT guys, they were pretty anal, so we'll see. They show up at my door with a big fine next week.
Yeah, come down to the border so we can arrest you. How about no?
Yeah.
So getting back on track here to the family business side of things, when did that all start? Or how did it start?
Okay, so I think all those years combining, you combine all summer, you come home, you combine here.
Actually, we should really do a shameless plug on what your business is called.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't think we have yet.
Wildfong, or if you're Googling this, Wildfong, WILDFONG, enterprises.com. There, shameless plug. And what's our slogan again? Like, we build performance. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really up on my marketing, aren't I? So yeah, like we build combine parts and everything, but I guess getting back to my long story short here. So Grandpa Bert done all these harvest runs and he's running farms up here. They spent so much time fixing and modifying the same breakdowns, the same parts, and it didn't matter what brand, whether it's the old Masseys they used to run or the John Deeres. I think he just got to a point where he's like, well, I was going to build it myself. So he just started modifying things, building them himself, and then turned it into a business. And that business became Harvest Services, and they ran it for, I want to say 15 years or so. And they sold it when I was a pretty young guy, maybe, I think the year I turned 9. So yeah, it was a really good business, and it's still running, and it's a good business too. Shout out to them. They operate right out of Crake. They got 4 or 5 employees, and they're helping keeping people employed in our small town, and yeah, it's quite a success story from all angles. And so I guess, about 10 years ago, I was farming full time and wasn't that great of a crop. 2014 was a real wet year. It's one of those things where you're just like, bad year, tough harvest, things were breaking. And I was just kind of like the same thing hit me. I was like, well, why don't we start building some stuff? It'll keep me busy, keep me out of the bar. And and just kind of went from there, and it's definitely kept me busy, definitely keeps me out of the bar for the most part. And yeah, I don't know, it started off so slow and just like happy to build a few sets of concaves here and there, and keep a couple guys employed helping me do that. And then it's just really taken off the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years for us. So it's good. It's nice not to be strictly dependent on grain prices, the weather, and just the farm for your living.
When we had talked to you before, I mean, you have your guys, cut a few of them year round, so they go right from welling to seeding and picking rocks to spraying and combining, and during the winter they can go back into production then. So that's making full use of your talent there, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's a big old heated shop. It takes a lot of money to heat that thing, but days like today, I was out helping a guy load one of our semis, and it was freezing, and it's so nice to go into a heated shop and do a little welding with one of the guys, and he used to work out on the service rigs. So I was like, feel good to be inside today, Tim? He's like, oh yeah, Russ, oh yeah.
So what is your big product that you're selling or promoting or doing the best with these days?
Well, we started off with concaves, and concaves they're good. They're like, about half our business, but the last 4 or 5 years, our front accelerator sales, our beater sales have really taken off. So in a couple different combines, they use a big, heavy accelerator drum in the front, and that's probably half our business right there. We pride ourselves on building the heaviest, strongest, high inertia beater on the market, and we do it for John Deere, the X9, the Fendt, Kloss, the front and the back in the Kloss. And I don't know, there's probably a couple other makes or models out there we could be building them for, but it seems like every year we add one more product to the lineup, and yeah, we're super busy just building those right now. So it's good, and I feel like we're building the best product out there, and we're doing a good job of it, and I think it's getting noticed.
Good work, good quality parts these days do not go unnoticed, because a lot of these parts that a lot of the major manufacturers I find that they're producing are just garbage. So one of my questions was going to be, do you ever see yourself building sieves for combines? Because I know the sieves that are in these CNH combines are just garbage. If you have one of the newer New Holland combines, like the Elevation series, the sieves, they kind of go opposite of each other. And you get 2-3 years out of them and they've just shook themselves apart. So it's pretty disappointing. My family has one combine in the fleet. It's got close to 3,000 thrashing hours on it, and we had to change the first sieve in it here this fall, or this last fall in 2025. The rest are still the originals.
Yeah. Yeah, so sieves are one of those things where they're what's the word I'm looking for? They're kind of like a niche market, right? Like you got a lot going on if you make an adjustable sieve. One thing my grandpa he didn't invent it. A guy from Washington named Ray Stickle came up with an idea, and he called it the airfoil chaffer. And the airfoil was quite an invention. And so Grandpa Bert, all he figured out was he found a shop to help him build a tool to where he could build these airfoils en masse. And it's quite the machine. So that's at Harvest Services. And a little shout out to those guys. If you're looking for quality sieves and airfoils, and the airfoil is still great. Not a lot of people are running them anymore. The dealerships, I think, push guys away from them. But they're great. I run them in my machines. You just get them from Harvest. So, I wish I'd inked a deal where I could make some money selling those things for them, because I send a lot of people their way, because I just think the airfoil is a good unit, and they make a plastic sieve too for the bottom chaffer, which is nice. It reduces weight, and you don't have to worry about steel components wearing out. And yeah, so big shout out to those guys. Send people there.
One thing I've heard with the plastic sieves, Nola chaff can be a real problem with them.
Yeah, it could be. That's the whole thing. Everybody hears different things, and I don't know. So that's a good question for them, I guess.
That's a big thing, is especially on the sieve side. I mean, yeah, if you want to build a big, heavy-duty sieve that might last forever, well, it's going to be so heavy, it'll probably go hard on the bushings and the arms and the drive, and then you've actually, you make one thing heavier, now you got to make everything heavier, and then you've kind of have to reinvent the wheel if you go too heavy. But I don't. Only good thing about the sieves and these new CNH ones, because we keep spares, upper, bottoms around here, because we have 3 of the same combines, and all of a sudden you just start spitting out chunks, and you look in the hopper, it's like, that sample is some dirty. Mm-hmm. And you go back there, and there's a 10-inch hole missing in the middle of the sieve. You go, yep, I know why. And then you want to fix it.
I have gone in with a big sheet of tin and patched over the sieve just to keep going, because there was no sieves available before.
Cut a few holes and ripples in there, and you make your own airfoil.
I don't get that creative. It's just flat. That chunk of sieve doesn't let any grain through.
Yeah. Comes in after. So how do you test some of your products? Like, I know a buddy of ours, actually buddy of the podcast here, Chuck Tony, he runs in the New Holland. He runs a set of concaves and stuff from you. How do you do the testing on that? Or you just say, Chuck, here you go, smash away?
Yeah. That's a nice thing about being a farmer and a manufacturer. Like, I can run this stuff in my equipment, and let's see here. I've got a bit of a spread when it comes to combines. I've got a 9770, and I've had S series before, and I'll keep my thoughts to myself on those. And 8230 case. I think isn't the cleaning shoe the exact same in the case as it is the New Holland?
Very similar. Very,
very similar. Yeah, probably built in the same plant in Nebraska.
Yep. Other side of the door.
And then I picked up a 760 Kloss 2 years ago. So those are kind of like the 3 main things we're building stuff for. So when a guy like your friend there, let's just say C. Tony, or should I say
I like to call him
T? I don't know.
I like to call him Buck Roney.
Buck Roney.
Buck Roney. That's my incognito for this gentleman is Buck Roney.
Yes. So, yeah, he was one of my guinea pigs this year. He ran it. And because it's only our first full year with the New Holland stuff available, and he pointed out some things we got to work on, right? So I'm glad we didn't have a huge release. We didn't get a whole lot of them out there. But yeah, just a couple little things. So I think next year we're pretty confident in the New Hollands. We're going to fully release that lineup. And, and being a farmer too, I hate when stuff breaks. So all our stuff comes with a full 3-year warranty. Rock damage. I've even had a guy warranty something for like a cultivator shovel. Like, to me, it doesn't matter. You build it with good quality steel, it should last. And the other reason I can do that is because I've replaced, I think, 2 concaves in the last 3 years. And we have rocks, our customers have rocks. So yeah, it just is what it is. And I never would have thought that was possible until, well, this was my 10th year doing this. And yeah, I'm super confident doing that.
So on your New Holland side of things, is it just the CR series, or do you also have it for the CX series?
No, I don't have anything for conventional guys. There's none of them in our area. Like, you got to go, an hour and a half to get to the nearest New Holland, like rotary. So you guys, you conventional guys. But I'll say this is our second year building Kloss concaves, and they're essentially like a big conventional combine for their Lexion twin rotor deal. So we're getting pretty good at them. So the CX probably isn't too far down the road. It just takes time. I find myself less and less time for new products recently, just keeping up to demand. I don't know. Depends. How many are we talking here, Tyler?
Quit rubbing your hands together. And not to mention, speaking of time, you're also chasing kids around to hockey and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an assistant coach. I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not a good enough hockey player or skater to be the head coach, but I'm really good at yelling at kids. So I can get their attention and get them to listen to what coach has to say. And but yeah, if they're looking for helps with their C cuts or their their crossovers, I'm not the guy. I'm afraid I play hockey. I'm looking straight down at the ice and that puck as I'm trying to make my way up the ice, and I'm prone to get caught in the open a few times.
Oh yeah, back in the day, I played not a lot of senior hockey, midget hockey, and then a little bit of senior, and a lot of non-contact. Nice thing about old pucker hockey, when you run into somebody, you grab each other and you say, "Buddy, you okay? Are you okay? Yeah." And then you think about skating off, or hell, you might start a conversation about concaves. You just never know what's going to happen. So how do some of your concaves compare to some of the other aftermarket ones out there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously substantially superior. How else can I put it? But no, I think what you find is you've got so many poorly built factory brand concaves. I don't even know if all the manufacturers build them themselves or if they just shop it out. But if it's coming usually from the US, like the US is building that stuff for corn country. They're not making it for hard threshing crops. So those concaves are all spec'd for a guy that's going to go out and do a couple thousand acres of corn. Well, you're never going to see a rock in corn. You're never going to have a green, tough wad of canola come through with corn or with, in that part of the world. So they've just left this like huge like opening for us aftermarket guys to come in and sell a product that, number one, any of the aftermarket guys, our stuff lasts way better than factory. And then the other thing is we all have our own little take on it. This is our secret sauce. This is why it works better than the other guys. And yeah, so I don't think you can go wrong getting any of the aftermarket products. I just think mine's the best.
So, Russ, can you walk us through one of your most common problems your customers face at harvest, and how has your products helped save them?
Yeah, I think like anybody, downtime's killer. And all those years we were running factory concaves, and we had just switched over to the 9770s, and man, those concaves just wouldn't last. So it's one thing to like a gearbox or something goes. That's you need a mechanic to come help you with that. But concaves go bad. You're doing lentils or something, and especially in those wet years too. Like those were awful. I don't know if people remember that. Maybe they've all purged it from their memory. But
No,
I
look back on the wet years with fondness.
Fun, probably, right? You guys are so dry.
Those struggles are actually good memories to me.
Yeah.
The memories I have now I wake up screaming from. I'd rather go back to the wet days.
Yeah, I hear you. And here it was, we had a couple years there. Well, I tore an air seeder apart once. That was bad. And I went out early one morning. Okay, I'm going to seed flax on this half section. It had been pretty like soft. We'd had a lot of rain and it had been a wet fall the year before. And yeah, I went on the field. I put the shanks down. I was like, I can't be here. I lifted up. I tried to make my way to the road. I got stuck going back to the road, not even shanks in the dirt. And of course, rightful. And it was one of those, I guess I shouldn't say the brand, but it was a 650 bushel cart. And the neighbor had his quad track and he was pro tilling ahead of the air seeder on the kitty corner to me. And so he came over and we have this old nasty rope. And okay, well, let's double this rope up. We don't want the rope to break. Okay. So we hook up, we double up. We had like maybe 20 feet between us. He starts pulling, and I'm looking at him. It's going good. And I see his eyes get really big, and I'm just like, and he starts slowing down. I was like, no, keep going. I don't want to be here all day. I turn around. The cart was in the mud, missing a set of duals, and the front axle pulled off it. And all of a sudden, things started pulling out of the mud real easy. I'd left half the rig behind. It was so bloody wet. We had an excavator come and pull trucks to the air cart. We unloaded into the trucks, pulled them to the road, and we left it there till fall. We waited till the ground froze up to go rescue everything. And he dug some of the stuff out of the mud that day, and we cribbed it up and everything. But we had like 1,000 acres left to seed, and it was then. And shout out to the local John Deere dealership. They got us a cart in about 2 days. They rented us a cart so we could finish seeding. But wow, yeah. So that's my memories of the wet years, Dallas. And so we were pushing mud the whole time, and everybody went heavy on lentils because lentils prices are good. And then we were growing like 8, 9, 12 bushel lentil crops, and you're pushing mud and sucking rocks and blowing rotors. Oh, it was awful.
Yeah, in the wet years we had lentils, but maybe shout out to my agrologist there. We kept them well sprayed. They ran in the high 30s, and then they were worth like 60 or 70 cents. Because people ask, they see my videos now, and they said, man, like, how did you get the machinery you have on your shitty crops? Well, we didn't buy that machinery with the shitty crops. We bought that machinery back when we could grow a crop. So, I mean, you start making $1,000 an acre on lentils. But those days, I have no idea when or if they'll ever come back to make money on lentils again. Now that the Eastern and Northern has taken over the lentils, I'll let them go have some fun because I can't do it.
Yeah, the lentil giveth and the lentil taketh away. It's tough, man. And like, so 2 years ago, I tried small green lentils, and like, they were the weediest mess going. They were awful. My neighbor, he had just these clean as a whip lentils right beside me, whatever. They went like 23 bushel and made me so much money that this year, I was just like, price of fertilizer, I was like, boy, I should go big on lentils. And then last minute, I was like, no, that's way too much work. I was going to stick to what I usually do. And thank God I didn't put more than I think I put 700 acres of lentils in, and I haven't sold a bushel.
Yeah,
and
they're going to have
I refuse,
birthdays.
damn it. It's that stubborn Wildfong D. I refuse to sell these lentils till they get at least 19.
It's like I talked to the one marketing lady about durum, and I said, I'm not selling any durum till it starts with a one. Either it's 10 or $1. I'm doing nothing in between. But speaking of back when you were mentioning there with a lot of the factory concaves being designed for corn and soybeans way down in the south, that's the whole reason we kind of started this podcast. Is there's excellent podcasts down there in the States and wonderful guys doing a great job, but what they're talking about in agriculture doesn't relate to us. They're not talking about air seeders and lentils and mud down there. They're talking about row crops and corn headers and stuff like that. So that's one of the main reasons we started this podcast, is to talk about our area, our soils, our rocks, our lentils. There isn't nothing worse than a gobby, wet, heavy chunk of lentils that the desiccation hasn't killed, slugging that rotor and blowing off, I'll say, the accelerator belts off some of them combines. And good times. They'll never get to have that joys of watching that $1,500 belt just go up in smoke.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there. It's totally different conditions and good and bad. Like as a kid, my dream was to grow corn. Hey, so I always have like a little corn plot every year. And it's fun, but it's also very disappointing when I go and try to combine whatever pitiful thing is growing there. But yeah, it's totally different. And it's always that grass is greener, and people look at like, oh, well, boy, if we just had a corn farm in Iowa, we'd have it made. And it's like, yeah, I guess. But when what is land down there now? Just crazy, right? So
I think it's like close to $10,000 an acre, is it not?
Yeah.
I think it's way past that in US dollars for corn country. And it's like, okay, but you'll never grow, and if all your grandpa or whatever was able to get was a section of land, well, then you'll be farming that section of land forever. And, maybe a section of land is good enough if that, if you can make enough of a living off that, but you'd have to adopt the China one child policy to, you can't, no big families there.
Well, and back to that expense in that land, I follow a lot of good TikTokers and stuff like that in the States, and I think their national average, the cost to grow corn, is $918 an acre to grow corn. So if you're growing 200 bushel corn, good for you. If you're selling it for $4, you're in my boat. you were actually
you're in the Saskatchewan boat now.
You're in the Saskatchewan boat. Here. Yeah, you're selling it for less than the cost of the production. The only big difference is we don't have the government bailout support like you guys have been getting.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of those things. Like, and I don't understand how their system works, and we're just super fortunate here that I had lots of years where I didn't get anything from crop insurance, and then there's years where crop insurance saved my bacon. So it's kind of like a luck of the draw kind of thing, isn't it? Like, I know it hasn't, the way it's structured, it probably doesn't work in your area very good at all, right?
Well, it did in the good years, but we keep dragging down that average. And then now the team that up with these incredibly poor prices. Yeah, we'll wait for the numbers to come out here next month and see what they're going to be. But I'm sure a lot of guys are going to drop crop insurance because you probably won't be in a claim for your average. And if you get a half a bushel above your average, you're not going to qualify for a claim. So all you're going to do is have a bill. So you may as well take that money and spend it on something else to improve the farm, because that's what I'm afraid of. The crop insurance numbers next year with these low prices and our area average being so low isn't going to be worth carrying.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, you got to go through that with a fine-tooth comb and figure out, what level of risk you're willing to have. But there's some crops I don't insure because, my 5 or 10 year average is poor on them. And part of my problem was, I'm pretty bad with paperwork, so I didn't do a great job reporting when the times were good. And, or like, and it was just like, then you're looking at your 5 year average and you're like, well, what about this year and that year and this year? And like, that shouldn't have brought it up. And it's like, you just didn't write anything down. Because I grew a bunch of stuff. I wasn't too worried about writing it down. It's just another piece of homework to do for class here. I want to do that.
Yeah. Instead of putting in your 50 average, you put a 0 instead. That's not helping your average any.
So it's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know. We had a couple of years there of good prices, and some guys were blessed to grow crops in them, and some guys grew nothing, right? And we were kind of middle of the road in our area. We're central Saskatchewan, right on the cusp. It seems like you're 10 miles to the west can be a total write-off, 10 miles to the east can be a bumper. And so we're all kind of, hit or miss around here. But at least we had 1 or 2 somewhat below average crops through the last 5 years, because guys in your neck of the woods, and I deal with a lot of customers out there, and that's tough, man. That is super tough. And I know you talk about mental health a lot on your show, and that's great. And mental health, like, part of this farming gig is our job is to grow stuff. So even in, the years where the prices were high and we grew below average crops but still broke even, you feel like a failure because you know what you can grow. But when you're 20, 30, 40% under that, you're just like, what did I do wrong? And in our case, at least, it's just rain the last 5 years for a lot of guys, and a lot of guys in the Southwest. But it doesn't change the fact that some guys are getting the rain, they're getting the crops, they're getting money, and they're buying equipment that have prices that I can't fathom. And a lot of guys are just struggling to hang on. And that's tough. Going to a farm show and, oh boy, like that's, unless we have 5 good years to get back on our feet, like a somewhat newer piece of equipment is just out of the equation.
It's very stressful. And that's why Dallas and I support the Farm Stress Line so much, because out here on the prairies, we all know farming just isn't a job. It's a lifestyle. It's early mornings, late nights, breakdowns in mud, weather that doesn't care, and bills that don't wait. And even though we're tough, sometimes the weight of it all gets too heavy. Stress, anxiety, burnout, they sneak up on anybody. Doesn't matter how long you've been farming or how strong you are, and nobody has to deal with it alone. The Saskatchewan Farm Stress Line is here for exactly that. It's confidential, It's judgment-free, and it's run by people who understand the ag life. Whether you're dealing with financial pressure, family stress, crop issues, or just feeling overwhelmed, they're there to talk, day or night. If you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, things have been a lot like that lately, just know reaching out isn't weakness. It's taking care of yourself so you can keep taking care of the farm, your family, and everything you're building. So if you need somebody to talk to, or if you think you know someone who might, don't wait. Call the Farm Stress Line anytime. The number is 1-800-667-4442.
And I got in the mail here last year, not long after we started this podcast, the Mental Wellness for Saskatchewan Farmers Ranchers actually send out a magnet you put on your refrigerator. And not only does it have the Farm Stress Line number, it has Saskag Matters numbers, family service number, all sorts, kids help phone, helpline, the suicide helpline. So there is a really cool magnet. If you can get that from the Mental Wellness for Saskatchewan Farmers and Ranchers magnet, it's a really cool magnet to have on your fridge. Because, there is help for not only just for farmers in stress. There is numbers for Gamblers Anonymous, AAs on here. This has a number. But if you're in trouble and you're having some stuff you can't handle, just do a little Google search. They will be a phone number, I guarantee, and there'll be a number there, I guarantee it, and there'll be an operator at the other end that is well trained to handle what you're talking about. And you're going to notice if you call that number, you're not the only person that's ever called that number. You're not alone in this. Many people are dealing with this. Them experts, you're not the first person to call with that problem. You're way down on the list. It's happened to more than yourself. And that's the big thing is you're not alone. You're not the only one dealing with this, but you don't have to deal with it alone.
Well said, Dallas.
So I'll just one more time, the old Farm Stress Line number is 1-800-667-4442. Don't be afraid to call. There's somebody there to give you a little talk to, because it might be life-changing.
And I mentioned, I talk to a lot of farmers, and I sell a lot of stuff to farmers in the Southwest. And, some guys depending on where you are, some parts of Alberta have been dry for a long time. And, I just want to thank all those guys. They're helping support my business. They could go anywhere. They could just not buy anything. The guys that come buy a new set of concaves, it's one more bill on a year where they know they're losing money. Then they call and say they're doing a great job, and it makes my day better. And until I ask them, well, how's it running? And a lot of times it's like bushel peas or, 7 bushel lentils, and it's tough. And so I'd like to thank those guys, because they are our best customers. They're the bread and butter of my business. They're not these huge farmers that, are going to buy 10 sets of concaves and then, haggle me down on discounts or anything because they're buying so much stuff. No, they're guys that they come up looking for a good set of concaves or a good John Deere accelerator, and they appreciate it. And I just want them to know that we appreciate them, because without their support, I don't think I'd be in this thing. I don't think I'd be farming,
Farming these last couple of years has been a tough racket for everybody, whether you've been growing some good crops. Like I said, I talked to a younger guy the other day about some fire truck business, because we were gracious enough to have a fire truck donated to our fire department, and he wanted to know how that all worked out. He had a good crop. I'm proud of the young guy. He had a good crop. He said after selling a bunch of this grain and the truck's going out and the bins are getting emptier, he said there's not much money left over because the prices are so terrible right now. So. And he asked how we were doing it down here in the South Country. And my response is, I don't know how we're doing it, and I don't know how much longer we can do it for.
Yeah. Yeah, you just got to, I'm not a super religious person, but you got to pray that, we got rain coming soon. And yeah.
I know we're getting
been too
rain.
long.
I went through the Weather Network's 12-month forecast, because, the Weather Network is so good at forecasting rain. They decided they wanted to do a 12-month forecast. So just in the new year,
Good.
I went through the forecast. Yeah, really good. The Weather Network, I think they're trying to work on the suicide hotline there of preventing.
Yeah.
Because they gave me a 19.25 inch rain forecast over the next 12 months.
Ooh.
I can grow corn with 18,
Good.
I was told. So I've already changed my seeding plans. I'm doing 12,000 acres of corn just because we're going to get 19.25 inches of rain. So I'm
Nice.
now going to be one of the corn and soybean guys out of the States. I got my
Excellent.
row crop header coming. Oh, yeah.
We're going to finally get to use your bagger, Dallas.
Years ago, during the summer, we thought we had a pretty good winter wheat crop coming, and I think we're going to be a little short in space. And, 25, 30 miles away, the guy sold out the operation and had a really decent looking bagger, and it wasn't overly expensive. I don't know how many years we've owned this bagger for. 6. We've never hooked it to a tractor. We brought it home from the auction sale and just been sitting there in the line. I should really sell that. If I have to sell money to pay bills, the bagger is going to be the first thing to go, because maybe it's just been brought bad luck to us because that has never been used. It's going to come with 6 brand new, never used bags. Most likely they're dry rotted in the sea can.
Yeah.
I think I got the solution to your problem, Dallas. Get rid of that bagger. So then you're going to need it, and now you'll have a bumper crop, and most of your problems will go away.
If anybody's looking for a brand unknown, because I've never used it, 9-foot bagger, send Tyler a message. Time for it to find a new home.
Yeah, there's worse problems to have than too much grain that you don't have a home for. You can always just put it on a pile on the ground, you know?
Yeah.
As funny as that sounds now, that was pretty common not that long ago, right? So get rid of that bagger. It's a curse. It's a pox. Get rid of it.
It's got some bad juju.
Yeah, and you're immediately going to start getting some rain, growing some crops. Hey,
Yeah.
that was in about 5 years ago. Yeah, about 5 years ago. I was sick of not having enough grain storage, so I purchased two of them. Things like the 40,000 bushel bins, and great. And they hadn't shown up yet, and it starts getting drier and drier that summer. And I almost canceled them too. And the guy's like, they're not going to get cheaper, and you might not have crop to put them in this year. And he was right. There was 2 brand new bins. There's not 1 bushel in them. The drought of 21, but I'll tell you, I'll never regret having bought them, because we've used them a little bit, ever since. And this year we filled them up. And now the price of those bins is way up. So, it just took a few years to get there, right?
Just glad they're not full of sailboat fuel.
My dad always said every year we built new grain bins, we've never filled them. Fortunately, the last 2 years where we have built grain bins, we filled them. So I hope this year's the same, because we plan on building a few more grain bins on this family farm this year. So I hope we can fill them. But
good. Yeah. For your sake, I hope so too. Should be good.
No, Tyler's, they probably have one of the best crops. I think you said the best crop you guys have ever grown over there. So that's good for you guys. Did a little Google Earth measuring. What are we, 390 kilometers from Google Earth to Google Earth?
By the way the crow flies, 392 kilometers apart.
Yeah, house to house. So the weather can sure change in 392.
It's amazing how much it changes. And you and I think it was seeding time. I was out doing some heavy harrowing, and I went over one of the highest hills on the farm, Dallas, and I just happened to tell you what my elevation was. And you said, well, shoot, I'm 400 feet higher than that on my lowest part of the farm.
Yeah.
And you seem to get so much more heat than I do. You're so much drier.
Well, I'm closer to the sun.
Explain to me how Arizona works then. That's what really confused me, because I've driven to Arizona before, and when you start dropping, you can see your elevation changing kind of once you get past Flagstaff. And it's just like going down a mountain all day long until you roll into Phoenix.
Well, that's what I think it is. It is probably the mountains. We're not overly far from some of the mountains heading towards the Rockies. And I think some of them mountain ranges divide the weather patterns, and and even our own elevation itself, like from the farm here to our highest land, is only 10 miles south and up 700 feet. I think that plateau, what we call the bench, it's the North American Divide. The water on the north side goes to the Old Wise Basin and then to the Hudson Bay, and the water on the south side goes into Missouri and then Fort Peck. So I think that ridge of hills divide the rain pattern, and it shifts some north and some south. And for some reason, it likes to leave right where we live at nothing.
You see, and then one difference I got with me is I got a lake to the north of the farm, Mooseman Lake.
Water's attracted to water.
Water's attracted to water. And then I have Oak Lake to the east of me. To the west of me, there's Kenosee Lake and a few other big lakes in there that I can't remember the names of them all. And then to the south, I got Boundary Dam, Alameda Lake. So I got a few lakes within 100 kilometers of my farm. So I feel like that's partly why in just my little nook, we seem to get a lot of good rains over what you're catching, Dallas.
Yeah, that's good. You must be fairly close to the river up there, Russ.
Well, we're pretty close to the mighty Arm River, which hasn't been very mighty these last few years. But no, really, we don't really have much usable water in our area for irrigation or anything like that. The Craig Dam has got a brand new pivot my neighbor set up. It looks good, and a full section pivot too. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what that works out for him. You know, what kind of yields he can get out of that. Consistency is key there, I think. Yeah, that's the dream, right? When you're in dry country, to be able to turn the taps on and put some water out on the fields.
Well,
Then
that
it takes a whole different kind of farming now, like that we're not used to, right? Us dryland guys, where it's just like it'd be quite a learning curve. But hey, I'm willing to do some homework on that.
Yeah, I would learn really fast on how to start a pivot.
Yeah, and yeah, it's funny you're thinking about the lakes, and you know, I would say you're like a pig spleen reader on that idea. Except my grandpa always said after they put in Lake Diefenbaker, I just seemed to get better rains. So, but then the '80s came along, so maybe that destroyed that theory. I don't know, but here's a good question for you guys. The Lake Diefenbaker irrigation project. It seems like that expansion stalled, and it'd be interesting to hear some more discussion on it, because personally, you know, depending on how they want to finance it, that probably needs some oversight. But I think we got to get there. I think we got to get that project rolling. And just recently took the kids skiing. We're out in that Medicine Hat to Lethbridge corridor. And man, if we could do that here in Saskatchewan, that would be something. And I think it's worth, you know, figuring out how to make it happen. And if taxpayers don't want to be on the hook, fine, whatever, low interest loan to figure it out or something, and it gets paid back to the taxpayer.
Boy, because it would get paid back if you could determine when you can turn the tap on and off, and you put the right crop down that can handle that kind of water and make the money back. I've looked at that before and been at not surveys, but SARM, and they talked about that project. The only problem is it doesn't come within 200K of our place. Actually, look at the map. It runs through some of the best the reason to do it, through the best dirt and rainfall in the province is where this thing's going to run. But they say you lose more water off of Diefenbaker due to evaporation than all the pivots can pump out of there, which just is amazing. But I guess that's how much evaporation.
Yeah, isn't that quite a stat? Hey, that's phenomenal. So yeah, it's one of those things. There's a way to do it, but I feel like in Saskatchewan, sometimes we get a little too stubborn the wrong way. And, you know, and something like that, I don't know about your small towns, but, you know, we're having a hard time surviving here. Our population's not going up. So, you know, would it directly affect my community? Absolutely not. But all those communities over there, man, if we could get fry plants, if we could get a sugar beet refinery, it'd be a game changer over there. And just be nice for one part of our province, rural part of our province, to you know, to get some real help and start thriving.
Well, that's maybe some of that can go into the investment side. And I've never really mentioned it much in here. Maybe it won't mention much, but I'm not a huge fan of these investments owning a lot of farmland. I don't think they're good for our rural economy. I've never thought that way. We have some very large investors in this RM. And you know what? Every time we have a fire practice, not one of them guys that owned multiple dozens of quarters in this RM has ever been to a fire practice or a fire in general, because they're not part of the community. They just take the money from the community and walk away and laugh almost about it. So they're not good for rural Saskatchewan, but yeah, that's my own take on that.
Yeah. And I know what you mean. I hear you. There's got to be a way of getting something done there to expand that irrigation, and rather than letting all that water go out, put it to some use. I don't know. And that's just a guy on a dryland farm that, you know, 50 miles from the biggest water reservoir in the province, and just no way to tap into it. But
yeah, just start digging her in. Yeah, because we have to do a little more research on that, Tyler. I remember I was at SARM and they had to talk about that. They were, Ralph Goodale was actually talking about that at one that they were going to look at bringing that back. I thought that was pretty cool that they're going to, because that's an old idea of having that pipeline from Diefenbaker towards Regina. Basically, was an old plan.
Yeah, I think the new plan is just to expand around Diefenbaker. I think that that other diversion, to run through some of the richest soil that's already making 60, 70 bushel canola in a dry year. No, I think it's strictly in that outlook, and then the west side of the lake. But again, all I've heard are a few reports in the news, and the details are pretty scarce.
Speaking of crop, what is your next year crop plan, if you don't mind sharing the secret to success with us?
Boy, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like the Stats Can thing. I'll just lie to you, and I'm growing a lot of faba beans this year and corn.
Yes.
Yeah, I think same as always. I was chatting with a pretty successful farming family from I can't remember what they go by, Siemens or Govan or one of them little small towns on the other side of the lake. And years ago, he told me I could grow half my farm to canola. And that sounds like a pretty risky venture. Why do you do that? I like growing canola, so I'm going to grow canola. And he just listed off all the great things about canola. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I started growing half my farm to canola, and didn't really work out too well the last 4 years of drought, but had pretty decent crop insurance coverage. So in the droughts, that covered my butt. And last year was a pretty decent canola crop. So yeah, the farm is 40 to 45% canola this year, I'd say, and a few lentils just because it's a addiction a habit that's hard to kick. And wheat, man, I like spring wheat. We've grown a lot of durum over the years, and in those wet years, we had quite a bit of fusarium. So it kind of turned me off durum, and I still grow a little bit of durum, but for 5 years in a row, spring wheat economically has performed better than durum. Way different yields, way different prices, but I've done better every single year, 5 years in a row. So a little more spring wheat than durum. And peas. I love yellow peas. They're not worth anything. They can be a pain to grow sometimes, but I absolutely love them. So
I also love peas.
I got to have my yellow peas out there.
So what variety of wheat are you growing?
Oh, boy, Brandon, but I hear there's a new one out there. So I don't know. Maybe I'll see if I can get my hands on that new stuff, but I don't even know who grows
Wheat
it.
King, I think.
Wheat King or
West King?
West King.
West
Yep.
King.
West King.
Okay.
Yeah, we
West
might
King,
try that one, but we've grown Brandon on this farm for a number of years. It is our tried and true. It's just so hard to get away from. You lose a little bit of color if you get a rain, but the protein's normally always decent on it. It's a good yielder. It seems to stand well.
Yeah.
We did that.
Well, and it's a big hit at NASCAR races. They all chant, "Let's go, Brandon." So I'm with them, man.
I've heard
Let's
that
go, Brandon.
chant before. Let's go, Brandon. Yeah. That's about as far as the political will go as a NASCAR chant.
And there's that wheatland, or not wheat. Yeah, wheatland. We grew that one this year, and it was okay.
Yeah.
We had it on some of our better ground, and it didn't do any better than the Brandon, which everybody says it's supposed to. And there's that, I think it's a Lida wheat. It's supposed to be kind of the predecessor to Brandon, but I'm not too sure on it yet. But definitely interested in maybe giving this West King a try.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's always good to mix it up and get some new varieties on the farm. And we've got this durum right now, and it's got this beautiful black purpley color to it. And even though it hasn't really been making me any money, I just love going out and looking at that durum crop.
Them
'cause
black
it is
beards.
pretty stunning. Yeah, and it's like a real purple tinge to it, especially the drowned out parts of the field. They seem to get even more purple.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
it's a really pretty durum.
What
It's just so
variety is
sad.
that?
There's so much purple out there and very little of the black full heads. But
Yeah. We got, I have my name on the list for next year. You can't get it for 26, but I can get it for 27. For Durham side is Frontier. And it's supposed to be ergot resistant because that drops a majority of our durum we grew this year from probably being a 2 or a 3 right to 5 in a sample due to ergots. I'm looking forward to trying Frontier because we're losing all that grade just because of them ugly looking black parts of the head there. So I can't wait to try
does
some
a
better.
gravity table or anything take that out?
You'd probably have to go more to a color sorter.
Yeah, I think it's more
Gravity,
color sorter.
a gravity table just takes light weights out. Like it'll be like all your seeds can be the same size, but some of them will be lighter.
Yeah.
So it'll take out your light ones that most likely won't germ or crack or something.
Yeah.
Because all it does is a gravity table, it's kind of almost looks like a set of stairs, and it just sits on a slight angle and blows a shit ton of air up through a corrugated screen it sits on, and that'll make your light ones float down, and your heavy stuff will climb up. It kind of sounds weird that your heavy would climb up. You'd think your heavy would go down, but your heavy actually climbs up.
So in those fusarium years, we had all this derm and it was worthless. And it just goes to show like what the market, the market just kind of controls everything. So it's fall, it's brutal. We're getting derm cleaned all winter. And I couldn't quite make a 3. Like, it was always just a little too much, and so, and you get it cleaned, you leave the cleaning plant, you go straight to the elevator, like, you cross your fingers, and they're just like, "Nope, no, didn't make it." Like, I think it was at the lowest point, one of those loads went for, like, $2.50 a bushel. This is winter of 2015. By spring, I had a pile on the runway of this reject full of fusarium tailings pile from the seed cleaner plant. I think I got like $4 for it.
Yeah.
I got, it's like I'm selling all this derm in the winter for like $2.50, maybe $3 if they were feeling merciful. And I sold the screenings pile for more money, and it was just like, what a crock! What the? I should have put it all on the runway and gone away for the winter and come back.
We had a 36-foot bin of, like, it was a 30,000 bushel, 36-foot diameter bin of chickpeas. And if you've ever grown chickpeas, they love to mold at the top of the bin all winter long. You'll open the lid and she'll be green corner to corner, and it's a half a foot deep. And you set up the vac and, your reducer, your regular 8-inch vac down to 3-inch hose and up the stair into the bin, and you vac the top of the bin off. The time it goes through the vac, through the hose, through the vac, into the truck, it's pretty well knocked all the fuzz off. So we had to do this a couple of times, and then stupid bins of chickpeas as we waited for the price to continue to drop so we could sell it to low. We vac the top of the bin off there, and finally we sold all the chickpeas. But we'd hauled home them reject ones that had sucked through a hose and beamed through the vac and augured into a bin because nobody cared. And then finally we sold the other part of that 30,000 bushels of bin, and they're all gone, and it sucks, and we didn't make any money. And a year later, the garbage we vacuumed off the top was worth twice as much as what we sold the other ones for. It's like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, no, there's a few examples floating around. I can't quite remember them in my mind, but yeah, it's just funny how the market works. And man, if a guy was in a position to just ride out the lows, and then I don't, if everyone was in that position, then the lows wouldn't stick around that long, I don't think. But when we're living, paycheck to paycheck here, it's pretty hard to ride out some of these winters, waiting for better prices. Now, that being said, I'm just going to throw this out there. Everybody sit on your small green lentils and don't sell them till they're 31 cents, because I'm going to sell them mine at 30, okay?
Yeah. I remember years ago, Colombia overproduced coffee beans. So instead of flooding the market with coffee beans, they legitimately took these mountains of bags of beans and they just kept dumping them off a cliffside that was burning. They legitimately just dumped hundreds and thousands of tons of coffee beans because they didn't want to flood the market. Well, have you bought coffee lately at Costco or anything? Like, coffee now, for some reason, air quotes going on here, there's a shortage of coffee beans in the world, and the price of coffee is ridiculous. We're better off to dump half of our production into the creek, and sell the other half for 50 cents.
No, we're better off to have some bins and then just don't tell Stats Can about those bins, and then go out and get them from the back 40 when it's time to sell them.
And Stats Can really looks funny at me when I report the acreage, because 12,000 acres of pumpkins takes up a lot of bin space. Yeah, unharvested.
The pumpkins. I'm reminded of The Simpsons, where Homer is a big wheel and he's made a bunch of money on pumpkins in the market, hey, and he's lighting his cigar at Moe's Tavern with $100 bill. And then, Homer, how'd you make all this money? Pumpkins. I have a feeling they're going to come around in March, hey? That's pretty much my marketing plan right there, too. I think they're going to come around in March.
But I found a great way to make a 90-pound pumpkin go away.
Tell me more.
Yeah, 5 pounds of tannerite.
Tannerite.
Yeah, and our buddy Buck Roney
that sounds like a Buck Roney kind of thing.
Kind of a Buck Roney type of thing. So he pewed the tannerite, and legitimately, the 1 pound of tannerite made the pumpkin blow apart. 5 pounds of tannerite, we had chunks of pumpkin landing behind us. We were all splattered with a pumpkin mist. But when we were walking around out there, we found a few seeds. Like that's the only thing was left was the
Yeah.
seeds. So we actually picked them. We're going to see if we can plant them seeds because I mean
Mhm.
those are the tough ones. They can take 5 pounds of tannerite.
Yeah, but they might not germinate. They're too stubborn to germinate.
Too stubborn to germinate. I really wanted to make that pumpkin go away, so I put a 1/4-inch plate underneath that pumpkin.
Mm.
Did you guess how big the dent is in a 1/4-inch plate underneath a 90-pound pumpkin with tannerite and pumpkin on top of it?
Well, it depends. Were you using Wildfong grade AR 400 plate, or
Mhm.
were you just, like my competitors using mild steel?
It was mild steel,
Yeah.
but it bowed at about 6 inches.
So now that you're talking about your steel, your Wildfong steel, your AR 400 versus mild steel, what is the difference between those types
Yeah,
of steel?
I've often wondered on that too.
It's a secret recipe. It's a family recipe, really. It goes way back to the old country, Ontario.
Ontario.
So, yeah, yeah. So abrasive resistant plate, 400 Brunel. It just means it's hard. It's hard and it's got a super high tensile strength because you can harden steel, but usually that makes it brittle, or you can give it a coating. Like a lot of the JD extended wear parts have that eutectic coating on it. They kind of like blow some that hardened stuff on it. You're not John Deere guys, so I don't know why I'm even trying to explain this to you. You wouldn't understand. So this is where you pay the big dollars to John Deere to have them blow this like stuff on your
Green
rub
paint.
bars.
Well, it looks like
Yeah,
truck bed
and
liner, right?
it does, yes. Okay, so
And
you've
it's
been
almost as
around one of
hard.
these things
And
before.
it's
Okay.
almost as hard as truck bed liner.
Yeah, until it starts chipping away, and then you're back to, mild untreated steel underneath, and then that wears away pretty quick. So basically, yeah, the AR plate in the concaves is pretty awesome stuff. We use it in the beaters, and then we get some casting done in Canada. So we got a foundry that makes rub bars for us. And then, so that gets done. It goes all the way to Montreal, Quebec, just in case you didn't know where Montreal was. And they harden it there. And they do a treatment called Oz tempering. And it's, what is it? It's like a solution bath, and they use electrolysis. And it realigns the crystal structure in probably not the whole depth, the thickness of the material, but at least in the first 1/4 inch of it. And it's pretty much bulletproof. Like we've got rub bars out there in guys' machines for almost 10 years now, and they've never come back with a busted rub bar, as far as I know, and they do come with a 3-year warranty too. So I always tell guys, well, let me know, in case it wears out or breaks or whatever. So if there's anybody out there that's got one, I guess slide into my DMs and let me know. But as of yet, no one's had a busted rub bar, which I think is pretty impressive for a wear part like that on a rotor that's spinning 1,000 RPM, and some ugly little piece of granite sticks its head up in between your concave bars and just waiting to get whacked. So yeah, that's the extent of my material engineering background, which was one class way back in the day that I was probably hungover for. But
One more question on the AR versus your mild. What's the price
Yeah.
difference?
Well, when we buy that stuff, you can't work with it very well. So it all has to get cut at a laser shop, and some parts we get cut at water jet tables. So the steel itself is about 1.5, 2 times more, and then the added cost of working with it kind of ramps it up too. So it's not cheap stuff that we're buying or making, but somehow little old me in a pretty redneck shop out in the middle of Saskatchewan can build a product that's superior to definitely to the manufacturers on way more small scale, higher overhead for sure, and I can sell it and retail it for substantially less than the big outfits.
Are you saying the middlemen some along the way in corporate gear
Well,
are making a lot of money?
yeah, everyone, they need their pound of flesh, and I get it. It's expensive to run a business this day and age, like it is, but there comes a limit, especially when a lot of these parts, you pick them up from the dealership, and right on the back it says "Made in China." And this isn't a political rant or anything. This is more of a domestic, like, help your fellow man thing out. If I can get that same part made in Canada for probably what am I trying to say here? Like a tenth of the price of what they're charging you at the dealership for it. Why don't, and I go and sell it for probably, what am I at? About a third of the price of the dealership. So, why aren't we doing more stuff in Canada? Why does it have to get shipped overseas? And
And a lot of that
it
stuff
just like we're shooting ourselves in the foot,
And a lot of that stuff that comes over from them overseas, it meets spec, but at the bottom end of spec. It's not the top end of the spec sheet. It's barely the minimum. Or maybe your Canadian made or North American made bearing or whatever you're buying there would probably be higher quality for building that right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the whole thing, we've lost so many jobs overseas, and I don't know, like, you just hope they'll come back because, I don't know, a strong country should really be able to look after itself, right? Whether it's, you're producing the equipment that you're driving or the pickups that you're driving or the fertilizer you're putting in the ground, like, we have all these resources, and everything, and we just haven't been able to make it work or figure out how to make it work for a long time.
Yeah.
Not just the last batch of them. Like a lot of this stuff, we were losing this stuff and it was getting outsourced before the last batch of the federal guys were in. So is it a culture thing? Is it they're just trying to save a buck anywhere they can, but they don't mind charging the end user and the consumer for it? And and so I love being able to like, tweak their nose a little bit when I go into the dealership and I'm like, oh, like I sell these for half that price. And
mine are better quality.
Yeah, which, the average parts guy doesn't really care. But
speaking of parts and machinery, is there anything on your shopping list between now and spring that you kind of must have? Like, are you trading sprayers or buying
we were talking Mack trucks earlier, hey, and my kid has, he's got this game called Farming Simulator. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or if any of your viewers have. And he goes out and he's 9 years old and he can drive anything he wants. Actually, this year was his first year running the combine, and let's just say with limited supervision for a couple days, and not like big full days, but so he can run this stuff, but he just can't get enough of it. So then, when he's not farming or playing hockey or going to school, he's farming sim more than likely. And there's this sweet old Mack Superliner all done up on Farming Sim. Now, I've got my eye on one, and I know the guy that owns it pretty good. In a moment of weakness, he sold me a corn header. So I've got a corn header here that probably needs a new home.
Hey, I don't have a John Deere combine, but I'm seeding corn, so I might need that corn header. I'll do a combine shopping.
Hey, well, wait, you just talked yourself into a corner. It's a case corn header, so now you have to buy it because it'll fit your combine. So there's this Mack Superliner that's all dudded up in that game that I have just had an absolute, can I say hard on the air, or do we have to edit that and put something else in? Well, how about a chub? Can I say, I've just got a
I think it all
I don't
stays.
know what other word to use.
We can do a whole list of them, but then we will get into trouble. We'll stick with those.
Okay, give me another word I can use, and then we'll
I think tightness in my pants.
Yeah, so I think you're good with all the things you've said there. That's fine.
I gotta have this truck, but don't let him know that because I'm trying to get him down just a couple thousand more so I can afford a paint job on it because it's hideous right now. It needs paint. It needs some chrome.
You have between now and Sunday morning to buy this truck before this podcast hits the air.
Okay, well, we'll see. But if you buy the corn head off me, then I can afford to go buy this truck and not feel guilty about it.
Yeah. Can I wait to see how the corn's doing after my 19 and a quarter inches of rain before I pick up that corn head?
Yeah. Well, before you pick it up, that check, it's got to be good and it's got to come now.
Well, believe me, if it's check's coming from me, it ain't going to be good. She's going to have, when I pass you the check, if it's taped to a rubber ball, don't be surprised.
Hey,
it'll just
IOUs. That's just as good as money.
Yeah. It'll just be one of them rubber chew toy checks that you can give your dog.
Remember like in Dumb and Dumber? Where they open the suitcase and the money's all gone, and all it is IOUs. That one's for a Ferrari. That one's still really good.
Yeah. I owe you 40,000 bushels of canola I didn't grow so I can pay this bill.
Yeah.
So what would your craziest rock or field condition that your parts have gone through be?
Oh, man. You know what does it?
Cultivator
can
shovels?
Can I use a specific combine brand?
Oh, yeah.
really
Yeah.
get into detail here? Okay.
We're
Yep.
not
Okay, this
endorsed
is
by
a-
nobody, so wow.
Yeah, this is like a bone I have to pick with the variable stream rotor in John Deere S Series combines. I'm probably going to get an angry letter from John Deere again.
That
So
is Russ
bullet rotor.
Wildfong at 101 Crake, Saskatchewan.
Yeah, yeah. Should I just give him my checking account number now? Just take it all. So the bullet rotor was a bulletproof rotor. Like we had hardly any trouble with those rotors, and had rocks get in there. And yeah, you'd have like one of those cheap cast rub bars would break on it. You could change them. You could weld a new nut in there to bolt it back down to the skin you just rented on it. And great, we moved to the S series. In the S series, they decided, okay, well, let's not build a proper gusset on any of those intake flightings. And they're those big elephant ear screw things at the front of your rotor, right? Well, a little rock the size of your fist can go in there, break off those intake flightings because they have no proper support. And it's not the rock that breaks your concaves and rotor and everything. It is the fact that you have some of the most hardened steel ever made known to man going through this combine at probably mock chicken, and it destroys everything. One of our customers, they didn't have a Wildfong beater, which I'm just going to put out there, may have kept that rock from, for entering there in the first place. However, long story short here, they had Wildfong concaves. That impeller flighting went through, destroyed that entire rotor compartment and everything. It bent the front concave just a little too much for me to fix. The back two were totally fine. A few dings and dents, so we straightened those out. They'd had the concaves for, I think, 4 years, and it's a 3-year warranty, but for the lack of church I go to, I'm still a Christian, and I was feeling a little merciful, and I replaced that front concave for him because that sucks. They were looking at like a $75,000 repair bill, and it's just like, you know what? What good's a warranty if you don't get to use it every once in a while? So I comped them a free front concave. The back two were fine, and because I'm a sucker for punishment, I bought that rotor off him because I'm going to fix that one up, and that's what I do in my spare time. I like to rebuild these rotors so some other sucker can put them in their machine.
And that I need to go back one question here. I often used, when I talk about things going really fast, mock chicken in things I say. So, and now you said it. How come we say, where the hell does that come from? Is that from a movie or a TV show?
I have no idea. My friend Nathan started saying that, and it makes no sense. So it's obviously super funny.
Well, that's why I
it just kind of stuck, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, somebody else says mock chicken because I'm like, that's me.
Yeah.
The fastest chicken in the West.
You'll have to chat GPT that one, and yeah, fastest chicken in the West.
That's not a part of a Burt Reynolds movie when he was. No, I do have to chat GPT that one. He was in a movie. And he was a race car driver, and he had to dress up in this chicken suit, and he was the fastest chicken in the West, or something like that. I'm watching a movie tonight. Yeah, so that rotor tough, and you're going to straighten that rotor. That'll take you a day or two. That's a good thing you have so much free time.
Well, and so I gotta give a shout out to a company in southern Saskatchewan. They're called Stewart Steel, and they replace busted pieces on rotors and get them straightened out, and they get them balanced again. So the last one I did all the welding on it and took it to Tanner for him to balance it. But this one, I'm just going to take to Tanner. I'll let him rebuild it, and then I'll have a rotor for sale, and I'll have a backup for one of my machines if I am in real pinch. But I've dealt with Tanner for about, I'd say, 5 or 6 years now. We started getting our accelerators balanced, and whether it's an accelerator, an impeller, and a cloth or anything, if it's spinning, we take it to Tanner, he balances them, and it's peace of mind, and you put that in your machine, and it's in balance. No dust can get in there. It's a fully welded, fully seamed up beater or whatever. So it's just that peace of mind knowing you got this nice, smooth running, part in your combine. And then they just seem to last that much longer. You're not worrying about bearings going out and vibrating things and cracking steel out on the, wherever the bearings are mounted. So if you ever lose a rotor, because there's lots of people out there that don't know they have this deal. They've got an exchange policy where you show up the day you blow your rotor with a banged up rotor on your trailer. They'll swap you because they keep lots of rotors. in stock, and they'll swap you for a rotor that's already been rebuilt and balanced. It's like an exchange deposit program. And you take that home that day and you can get her in your combine and be going the next day. It's one of the best deals in Saskatchewan. And I just think everyone should know about it.
But that's a good thing to let him know, because that is nice to know. Because do they keep him for the New Hollands too?
Yeah, he sure does.
That's
He's got a few different styles there too of New Holland. Because I don't understand all those different New Holland rotors. I just haven't worked on them much.
I don't understand. They have a narrow one with deeper rub bars and a wider one with other rub bars, and I don't know. The same setting seems to work on both of them, so I really don't care.
Yeah.
And maybe if I got back to the day where I'm pushing, a crop that would actually make my combine go to capacity, I would try to figure that out. But when you're stuffing in a, 8 to 15 bushel crop in a class 9 combine, you're really not using its capacity.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's...
Tyler, have you ever had issues with some of your conventionals getting out of balance? I remember back in the 9600 days, you shut her down at night, it's running nice and smooth, and the next day when you fired that separator up that concave, or that rub bars feel like they're going to come through the bottom of the cab.
Yeah, we'll get that once in a while. If we get a real heavy dew in the morning, hired man will come on the radio, this combine's shaking. Well, did you just start it up? Yeah. Well, shut it down, let the cylinder stop, and fire it back up again. It'll probably go away. And if it's still vibrating, speed it right up, slow it right back down, set it to where you are, let it shut down, stop again, then fire it up. They do that and the problem goes away. When we do rebuild it, when we put the rub bars on, we got to make sure we orientate them right. Like we put one on and you got to go straight across the clock to the other side and put the other one on, because they come in pairs. So there's two rub bars bolted together. So one goes on one side and one goes complete opposite. So
that makes sense,
always done that when we do our rebuild. And other than that, that's the extent of the trouble we've had.
And that's the same with chopper knives. If you ever have something go through the chopper, you break a chopper knife, if you change the two on the one side that are together, you have to change the opposite to them to keep it in balance.
Yeah. I actually will keep, when I redo chopper blades, other than my wings, I will keep a handful of used chopper blades.
We get them just with the same size back on.
So I can go through my box of fused chopper blades, and if I happen to knock one off, I'll find whichever one's closest to the same wear, put it on, and away we go.
Yeah, that's not bad. Hey, like, it's so funny. And choppers are spinning super fast, and they'll get vibrating really bad, if they're really bad out of balance. But then you'll run them for like a year or two if the blades are still good, and you'll start a year and you're like, well, the wear and tear is not even on that chopper. So, if you lose a blade or something in season, just putting a worn one on really isn't that bad. And that's another thing they do down at Stewart Steels. If the rotor on your chopper goes bad, they can straighten that out and get it balanced too. I was just at a customer's yesterday, and he was complaining about his X9 chopper vibrating really bad on one machine. And I was like, well, it probably is bent. So either take it out and get it balanced now, or buy a brand new one come harvest when it's shaking and cracked out your bearing mounts or whatever.
I think the X9 is a nice machine. I demoed one last fall and I've had a nice day on it. I think it's a nice, full of technology, decent machine. What's your opinion on the X9?
Well, the X9 is like one of those like things we call a unicorn. It's it's like a fairy tale or a mythological creature that someday I might have on this farm, but that day is a long ways off. But I've talked to people that they hated it. I've talked to people that absolutely loved it. So yeah, I think it all comes down to your farm, what fits, and how you like farming. And if it's the right fit for you, great. If not, then whatever. So be it. You don't have to keep up with the Joneses,
Yeah. And it's just, I know it's going to be a good combine because most of the technology is stolen from New Holland.
Yeah, like green twin rotors. It's so strange to see a New Holland in green.
In green.
But that's funny because I'm pretty sure my John Deere friends were telling me, like pretty much this thing is like the first of its kind. Yeah, we invented the twin rotor.
They invented the twin rotor 47 years after New Holland did.
Yeah. And that's one thing, and so I did take engineering. I passed barely, skin of my teeth. But so I don't really go by an engineer because I've worked on this stuff for so long that, and I've changed so many concaves and designed stuff to fit all these different things, that in that ivory tower of John Deere's, whoever invented those X9 concaves and how they go in that combine, just kind of want to kick him in the balls. It is, it's as bad as the New Hollands. The New Hollands are heavy. They are heavy, but hey, there's people that have solutions to that. Wink, wink. But that X9, it's just, yeah, it's a treat. I don't know. You're going to have lots of listeners that have, I hope, maybe I'm just like a super weak wimp here and it's just like hard to get those things in there. But you have the opportunity in the year 2000, whatever it was, they came up with that, 2020. I'm going to use the old Trudeau line. It's 2015. Just build it so it's easy. Like, just like if these guys never lifted something like 50 pounds up and out in front of them and like try to wiggle it into something that's, when it's brand new, it's fine. When it's full of dust and dirt and chaff, and it drives me nuts.
So you're going to go with the Tony Reid saying, if you think your wife's slipping away and cheating on you, have her bring her man home and help him lift those in for you and then kick her out.
Well, it's like change them on the New Holland combines. Like you said, that they're heavy. And the engineer that thought this didn't remember that this freaking combine has duals. And right where you're supposed to stand, there's a set of tires there. So not only are you have to pick up something heavy, you're picking it off on 1 foot at a 22-degree angle because the rest of you is leaning against a tire. It's a dumb system.
It's just bizarre. And, the case, I think the flagship case is probably the easiest concaves to change. You've got everything, it's out in the open, you can get at it. That's probably the best. And just everything else is just like, were they trying to just make this so miserable that you just pick up the phone and call the dealership to come change your concaves? Because I'm still relatively young, but man, when I'm like 60 years old, there's no way I'm changing concaves, like nuts to that. And, that's what the kids are for. But if you ain't got a kid handy or a hired man that, that's young too, like the farm I was at with those X9s, both his operators are in their 70s. So, they ain't changing those concaves, and I don't, they don't have to, man. They've put their hours in, but that's a terrible job. Like, can somebody just figure out how to do it? Like, my dad's a history buff, and he has like random history of just about anything. Hey, and he'll be like, did you know the Messerschmitt's 109? They could fully change an engine in that machine in under an hour. And then you could slide the old one out, you slide the new one in, you go back up and you keep fighting. And I get you. Okay. Yeah. So, but we have to, it takes 4 hours to change concaves in the combine. Okay. So maybe what we got to do is we got to take these engineers out and you're going to design this in the Ukraine. You're going to be out there and, okay. And it's live. This is live action. So get these concaves in and out and we might get some better results maybe.
And I think that's one problem that we have with these engineers that are designing this farm equipment. They're not spending enough time in the field with it. They ram it through testing. I got to slip off early today. My daughter's got a ball game. They're not like being there with the farm like we are, where if it's harvest time, sorry, sweetie, we got to go combining. There's rain on the way. Mom's going to have to take you. Dad's got to take the crop off.
Well, that's like the shameless plug I'm going to do now. I do a lot of prototyping for Dutch Agriculture on their air seeder knives. So Andrew, the territory rep, will come out and Nick, the engineer, will come out. Well, Nick's not your average engineer. Nick's a farmer that farms after work. So not only does he have the prototype stuff on my drill, he's got it on his drill. So, he knows the difference, what it's like in the real world situations. And that's the big problem with maybe Mother Deere and companies like that, is their engineers aren't farmers. They didn't come from a farming background. They went to engineering school. They got awesome grades and John Deere paid the best. And that's where they are. And they have no idea that outside the body of that combine on their little computer model drawing, there's a frickin' set of tires. And somehow we have to fit between that set of tires and the body of the combine to put these, 300-pound concaves in one side of the machine.
Well, not even the concaves. We got this thing that's working in a very chaffy, highly flammable environment. But let's put an exhaust on it that gets up to over 1,500 degrees and will light itself on fire.
Yeah. So we were talking about, actually One of my favorites so far, people to talk to on here the other day was BF48 farmer Brad Ferguson was on here, and we were talking about at the crop production show about his baler. He's got a Vermeer self-propelled baler.
Oh yeah.
Pretty awesome little piece of technology. They lit that on fire in the first afternoon that they got it, brand new. But he says, what kind of moron, or what I forget what he used there. The exhaust system is right above the bale chamber where there's fluffy, dry particles of dust sitting on the exhaust. You know, they had it on fire the first day. So this thing was almost brand new, and they've completely gutted it, deleted it, straight pipe, straight up into the air, you know, changed the air filter where it sucks in air, everything on something brand new, just because it has to check some California emissions box. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's all getting changed right away here. So hopefully all that stuff can just get chucked out the window, and we'll go back to designing what really matters. You know, equipment that runs and you can fix and you can repair yourself. Yeah. And there's a big change coming down south, and a lot of that's for the better for us. It is. It's going to be.
Hopefully it comes
You
here.
know, we've had our heads up our butts dealing with this kind of stuff. Semis that won't run because their def freezes up, and it's just bizarre. There's things worth worrying about and focusing on, and then there's things that are, you know, like what are we going to do? Have an electric tractor go pull a 80-foot air seeder? Like they're out of their minds.
They have no idea. But that's going to hurt our buddy, tractor hacker there, because he might be out of a job if this stuff shows up without emissions on it.
Well, there's lots of old stuff that needs it, and who knows what's going to happen at the border too. It might be a requirement to put it back on. So we'll see what happens there. But
So I got one more question for you. We're starting to get a little long in the tooth here with this episode,
yeah,
so I think we're
yeah.
going to have to wrap it up. Do you have one combine setup tip that you think every farmer should know?
man, call Wildfong.
There you go. So if somebody wants to reach out to you to get one of your products, where can they get a hold of you at?
Yeah, so website's a good place to go check stuff out. I've been negligent about, you know, updating photos of new products and stuff, but yeah, the website's great. You can get my phone number there. You can get Bryce's phone number, or Dad. He's on there too. He's still a wealth of knowledge when it comes to setting combines and talking shop. And also, you'll probably get a history lesson and a politics lesson too. So if you're bored, give him a shout. So yeah, everything's on the website.
Perfect. Well, Russ, this has been actually a lot of fun. You're a ton of energy. How do I bottle that? You should bottle some of that, because when you get to be my age, you're going to want some of it back. This has been a boatload of fun. Glad they ran into you at the show. I'm glad you agreed to come on here and share some stories and have some fun with Tyler and I. And Tyler, thank you. This has been another marvelous episode we've been having here.
Yeah, Dallas, it was great. Thanks, Russ. And thank you, everybody, for listening to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast. Hi, everybody. It's Tyler Janin here. I want to thank you for listening to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at bunnyhugfarmers@outlook.com. Once again, thanks for listening to the Bunny Hug Farmers Podcast.